Hi guys, welcome back to another podcast. It's Dan here from Sports Cards UK, and in today's podcast we've got answering your questions. So you've asked me lots of questions, and on this episode I'm going to answer them. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up some of the questions that I've got here on my phone. I'm going to start with Instagram. So I did ask people on my Instagram story, and I did ask on Twitter as well. So I'll make sure that obviously I get to you. And we'll probably do this again as well in another podcast. As this I think will be quite a lot of fun. I've looked at some of the questions, but not all of them. So I haven't really prepared answers for them. So if I'm kind of umming and ahhing throughout the podcast, then that's probably why. So the first one that I've got here is, will we have a Jar and a Zion next year? So the answer, in my opinion, is yes. I think the biggest prospect coming into the NBA draft 2021 is obviously going to be LaMelo Ball. I think a lot of you would have probably guessed that anyway. A few people thought he was going to go to the Warriors, but he did in fact go to the Hornets, which is a huge move because, as you know, that Michael Jordan owns the Hornets. So it's a big move. LaMelo Ball is going to be playing under Michael Jordan, or I'm sure Michael Jordan will have some involvement with his playing, maybe his some training. I know he owns the team, but I'm sure he'll have some involvement there. And I think James Wiseman is going to be another one to look out for as well, who the Warriors did actually go for over LaMelo Ball. I think James Wiseman is going to be really exciting. Obviously, the number one pick was Anthony Edwards. In recent times, there has been, not in recent times, but in general, there has been a lot of number one draft picks that have kind of flopped or haven't been as good as they initially thought they were. A lot of like number three picks have actually been really have blown up and been really good. So that's quite interesting. Yeah, so obviously there's been loads of big number one picks as well. So you're looking at like LeBron James was a number one pick. Anthony Davis was a number one pick. You had, I mean, there's loads I can name off. Hakeem Olajuwon was a good one. Allen Iverson, I think, was a number one pick as well. So there was loads of number one picks, but the number three picks have also got kind of a history as well. So yeah, I think LaMelo Ball, I think Wiseman, Anthony Edwards, as I said, was the number one pick. A lot of people are kind of questionable about him because he has recently spoke out and said that he doesn't actually enjoy basketball that much, and that he wants to be a rapper. The words have seemed to have come out of his mouth, so I can't say I don't know how much truth there is in that. I guess we'll just have to see him in the NBA and see how he does. I mean, he's in the NBA. I think he's going to take it seriously. We have seen other NBA stars become rappers, like Lonzo Ball did a rap song, or I think he did a diss, which was interesting to say none the least. Which I think I've mentioned that on the podcast as well before. What's a player that you think is dramatically overpriced? Oops. Dropped my phone there. Dramatically overpriced. Okay, so this might rustle a few feathers and you might have a go at me here. I'm going to say Mbappe. I rate Mbappe as a player. If you look at his performance in the Champions League this season, he hasn't scored with players like Di Maria and Neymar either side of him in a very good team. I reckon if we saw Mbappe go to somewhere like the Prem, I don't know if he would be as good as he is in Ligue 1 as he is in the Premier League. They do say Ligue 1 is a bit of a kind of a farmers league. And don't get me wrong, I completely rate Mbappe. I'm not saying that I don't rate him. 100% I do, and I think he is one of the most exciting young talents there is. However, some of the cards that have come out of his, I just think are so expensive. And I think that is kind of due to the hobby exploding around the time his cards were. available, and a lot of people were looking at Prisms because they follow Prism from basketball and NFL, Prism being the best set, so people just went mad for the Prisms. You've got players like Haaland as well that are coming up that aren't anywhere near his price, and I think Haaland could easily be as good as Mbappe is, if not better, in my opinion. I think there's some attributes that Haaland has that Mbappe doesn't have that I think could make Haaland a better player. If you ask me who do I think would probably perform best at their prime in the Premier League, which I think, a little bit biased, but I think really proves whether a player can do everything, I think Haaland probably comes out on top in terms of Mbappe. That is just my opinion, and you're probably going to say, Dan, you're a fool, or Dan, you're talking rubbish, but I'm going to say Mbappe is I think, dramatically overpriced. I think his cards are worth a lot. However, some of the cards that are like 10k or something, that doesn't make sense to me. Do you think soccer cards could reach the same level as the American sports? Yeah, so I think soccer cards are in their infancy at the moment. Do I think they can reach the level? I think they can exceed the level of American sports. Soccer's a worldwide sport. So it's the biggest sport in the world. It's got the most coverage. Will it be bigger than the NBA, which is only played in America? Will it be bigger than American football, which is only played in America? I think so. Will it be bigger than NHL, which seems to only be played in, again, Canada and America? Would it be bigger than the MLB, which is only played in Canada and America? I think so. Now, that's not me knocking any of the other sports. It just means that soccer has such a worldwide coverage, and there's so many different players to collect, and there's so many different leagues. You could be based in Brazil, and you could just collect the Brazilian league players. You could be based in Argentina, and you might just collect Argentinian players. The list's endless. In the UK, we don't have loads of guys in the NBA. We don't have loads of guys in the NFL. So I think it's you kind of want those. You want to support those guys that are from your hometown, they're from your home country, that sort of thing. Whether they're from Europe or I know for the European guys, a lot of us do support the European basketball players. If basketball was kind of a worldwide sport and they had Prism for Premier League and whichever else, there was a Premier League equivalent of basketball. And there is obviously other leagues, but they don't get the TV coverage and they're not as big as the NFL and the NBA is, probably rightly so. But I just think sport has that worldwide sort of global reach, whereas although the others do, they're all based in the US and surrounding areas. So yes, I think it can eventually exceed basketball and NFL in my opinion. Which a few people might disagree with, which is absolutely fine, but that's just my opinion. What percentage of cards do you flip versus what amount do you grade and hold? Flip-wise, maybe 10%. Grade and hold, 90%. And the reason I say that is because, and I do explain this to a couple of people, because some people do message me and they come to me and say, Dan, what's the easiest way to make double my money in 24 hours? And there's ways of doing that, but it's not quite the strategy that I tend to follow. And that's not me knocking the strategy. I think because I follow so many different sports, it's difficult for me to watch every single game and get that real inside coverage that I need to be able to flip things really, really quickly and turn over a really, really quick profit. Because if you are going to do that, it has to be off the back of a performance. I mean, why is a card going to grow within 24 hours? You have to score a hat trick and they all have to be bicycle kicks and everyone decide that player who wasn't good before is now an A-star player. It's unlikely. So the way that I describe my investing is putting money away for a year onwards. Sometimes it might be 6 months. For example, I've invested in Tatis. Tatis might be a 9-month investment. It might be less than a year. I'm not sure at the moment. So my strategy of investing is putting money away as opposed to flipping. So when I say 10% flipping, it is only because it's off the back of a performance or I thought a card was undervalued, was not worthy of grading, so I've flipped it. Examples of flips, if you're asking that, well, you're not, but I'm telling you anyway, would be Tyler Hero was a flip. I purchased that in March for £4 for a select, and then flipped it for 35. DK Metcalf, again, purchased in March. I sold two recently, one for I think £11 and the other for 15, and I bought those for £5 and £3. I also bought a red, white, and blue Panini Prism of DK Metcalf for around £20 or something, and that's on my eBay now for 70. I've had offers at 45, but I probably want to get around 65 for that, so I'm just happy to leave it there. So they're examples of flips, and that's just either where I can't be bothered to grade them, I don't think they're going to get a decent enough grade that I'm going to end up grading them. So the grading process is so long that flipping is almost impossible, or your definition of flipping is impossible, because you're going to wait 8 months for the cards to come back anyway. So flipping is quite difficult. So I tend to go with the long-term investments. And another question that I get a lot is, how do you know when to sell, or how long do you hold your cards for? And that's a really kind of difficult question to answer. The first question is fairly easy in terms of how do you know when to sell, and it's when the player's in their prime, or when the player's peaked and you can't see that card going any higher than it already is, and you can only see it dip. That's the time to sell, is when it's at its highest. So you buy low and you sell high, as the famous saying goes. How do you know when, or how long do you keep your cards for, is really, really difficult to answer, because I'm not going to sell my card within a year if that player hasn't made any progress and has probably got longevity in the league that they're in. There's no point. So each different card is going to have different, each card is dependent on how long I keep it. It all varies. So hopefully that answered your question, and I've kind of added a little bit onto that as well. Soccer cards are, from what I gather, in their infancy stage. Do you see it booming? Yep, 100%. I think eventually there will be a boom, and then there'll probably be a decline. But I think it'll be fairly similar to what we see with Pokemon. Pokemon's taken a ginormous boom, and then it's probably going to take a little hit after the Logan Paul leaves. But at the moment, it's still going up and up and up. But I think there eventually will be a point where it levels out and then dips again, and then goes back to normal prices when something new comes out or people lose interest. I think sports cards are very, very similar to Pokemon. And if you look at Pokemon's never really gone out of fashion. It's never really dipped. And that's because Pokemon's always been so relevant. There's games out, there's movies out, there's cards out all the time. Why is sports any different? Sports is always going to be on our screens. There's always going to be sports around. There's never not going to be sports. World War II, England and Germany played football on Christmas Day. Sports are always going to be around. So I think there's going to be a lot of longevity in it, and I think there will be peaks and troughs in terms of pricing over the long term, but it's not going to dip anytime soon. We've only just seen the first Panini Prism Premier League product. Just one. We've only had one. Panini have only just introduced NFL into the UK site. I mean, could it be any more in its infancy? That's what I'm saying. So it'll keep going, and it will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's where we see more people get into the hobby. We're still seeing more and more and more and more people get into the hobby. And I think someone is probably going to do a TV show on it in the UK. There'll be news stories about it in the UK. There is obviously all over America. But I think there'll be someone to do a big coverage on it. Maybe the BBC will do a documentary on it in the UK, and then more eyes will go onto the hobby for sure. Someone's just asked grading in Europe. So it's not really a question, but I think I know what you mean. So for grading in Europe, I think it is still Graded Gem. Graded Gem have an office in Italy, and I think you can ship to Italy if you're based in Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I double check. But I'm pretty sure Graded Gem are kind of expanding so that they've got available options in Europe. So I think, I think Graded Gem's going to be your best bet. I know Sports Cards Time, who's based in Europe. He's used Graded Gem. Shout out to him. And he's overseas. So yeah, if you're in Europe, Graded Gem's probably still going to be your best bet. And I would have thought it'd be the cheapest as well, as it's the cheapest in the UK. So some great questions that I got from Instagram. I think that's all of them. Oh, okay. No, I've got some others here. What cards are you planning off on sending? What cards are you planning on sending off for grading? So I've recently done a grading video. I have got some more cards that I'm sending off for grading. I've got a load of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that needs to go off. Some more Ronald Acuna that needs to go off for grading. I've got some vintage stuff I want to send off as well. Maradona stickers. I know the Maradona sticker I have sent off, but there's stuff like Beckenbauer stickers that aren't rookies, but I still want to see them in slabs. I've got some Pokemon that I want to send off as well. I've got like a Ho-Oh Shining card that I got in a what do they call them? Trainer box that I bought years back. And what else? Or maybe only a year or two back now. I've got some other Pokemon cards that I want to send off. I bought like the Game Boy exclusive of Dragonite, which I think it would have come out in the mail Monday by the time I made this podcast. If not, it'll be next week, which I've ruined for you. And I've got a lot of baseball, loads of Jordan Alvarez I've got to send off. Gavin Lux, loads of him I've got to send off. Luis Robert, I've got a couple of cards of his. I did send off the Mega Box Refractor and the camo version of his Bowman's first. But yeah, lots and lots of baseball. Haven't sent off a lot of baseball yet. I've got some Bo Jacksons that I want to send off. I've got about 7 of those that I need to send off. So yeah, mostly baseball I think at the moment, because I've done a huge basketball submission, and now I've recently done a huge football submission, which includes Beckham and Henry and Zidane, players like that, and some newer players as well, like Sancho, Foden are in there as well, and then did do a couple of basketball cards. I think I did a Kobe White, and I think I did a Giannis die cut as well. Sorry. How much does it cost, and how long does it take to have cards graded? On average, maybe 8 months for cards to be sent off and then get back to you. PSA they've just released a kind of a new office, or they've just updated their office. I can't remember which, but they're expanding massively so that they can keep up with the truckload of cards that they're getting. I know Graded Gem are inundated with cards daily. So the wait is big, but hopefully it will reduce once PSA keep up with the demand. But yeah, the demand is ginormous at the moment, so there is a huge wait. And being from the UK as well, there's a big wait. I mean, if you're looking to spend £75 per card, you could probably get them back in a couple of months. But that's a premium service, and you've got to have a card that you either want to sell right away, that's worth a lot, that you can take 75 quid off, or it's just not worth it, in my opinion. Do you think the industry will grow in the UK? It's difficult to card collect here than it is in the US. Yeah, it is, and I completely appreciate that, and I think it will. I think Topps doing loads and loads of football with rookie cards now on their cards. This is a Camavinga Topps Living set. So the first rookie card logo they did, not on this one, I don't think. What was the first rookie card logo? I think it might have been Jude Bellingham. So Topps putting rookie card logos in the UK cards now, or cards that are sold in the UK. Some of the UK exclusives have got rookie cards on now, which is brilliant. That's a really, really good sign. And Panini stocking NFL, as I mentioned, in the UK, again, is a really, really good sign. Topps actually did start sort of test driving baseball with a UK product, which sold out in minutes. So that was kind of them testing the waters to see if baseball had room to grow in the UK, which I think it definitely does. They've only got to release a hobby box, and it's going to go completely out of stock within 5 minutes. If they released Series 1, Series 2, update, whatever, it would sell out. Same with Bowman's, it would sell out 100%. I think Panini are just testing the waters. They don't want to throw a load of product at the UK and then it just kind of sit on the shelves and not move. But I think with Topps have got a kind of a page within Amazon where they sell baseball cards, and those have been doing really well, and those have been selling out. So I think they started with a couple of opening day bits. They did Bowman's was on there. That you're also able to buy. I think they've got archives on there now, and I bought Heritage from there as well. So yeah, 100%, I do think that the industry will grow in the UK, and I think it's growing, but we're, again, in very early stages. So I think that is all the questions that I've got from Instagram. And I've just got one more from on Twitter, which actually I did get. Let me find this. Shout out to John Evans on Twitter. I know he's quite active on Twitter. He said, Oscar Wilde suggested that all art is quite useless. Using examples from the 20th century, counter this statement, 2,500 words or less. And then in brackets, 5 marks. Cheers, John, mate. Yeah. That was a good tweet. I rate that. But I'm not going to answer your question, I'm afraid. Maybe I'll DM you. So the last question from Twitter is from Northern Sports Cards. So shout out Northern Sports Cards. He's just recently, I think maybe this month or end of last month, started up a YouTube channel. So I'd recommend you go and check out his YouTube channel. He's really active on Twitter as well. Really, really nice guy. He said, question from me would be, what would be the perfect card for your personal collection, only that you wish you could own? This card doesn't necessarily have to exist. For me, it would be a hand-signed Topps Chrome of Paul Gascoigne from Euro 96. Oof, that's a banger. I think I quite like, just on that point, I quite like a Topps Chrome of Paul Gascoigne from Italia 90. That I think I'd really like. I've got an Italia 90 shirt with number 19 on the back, which is my birthday, and it's Paul Gascoigne's number. So that's quite cool, and I absolutely love the design of that shirt, and we did quite well in that year. But that's a good question and a good answer actually from yourself. I would probably say, I said this with my podcast with Sunday League Investors, so that was episode 3 now. So if you haven't watched that, definitely go back and watch that or listen to that on podcast. Listen to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. But I would probably go with the one that I said in that video was the George Best. Which obviously does exist. If it doesn't exist, a George Best RPA and would be really cool. I also would say that a Roy Keane RPA would be really good as well. I think that one would definitely be one that I would look for. Or I'd like. Roy Keane's kind of always been quite special for me. He's my second name's Keane. I think I said this on the previous podcast as well, but we went into JJB, which I think is now bust, but if you're from the UK, you'll know what JJB is. We went to JJB when I was younger, and it was cheaper to have a player's name on the back than to have your own name. So we got kind of a little bit of discount, which was Roy Keane and obviously my name. And we had 16 on the back, and 16's kind of always been a lucky number, 16 and 19. I've actually got it sort of tattooed on me here. And then when I first played for my sort of Sunday League team, the shirt that I was given had number 16 on the back, and I didn't even ask for it. So 16's kind of always been there as a kind of a lucky number for me. And Roy Keane's kind of always been that sort of special player, and I love him as a pundit on Sky as well. You can't not love Roy Keane. It's just brilliant. But there we go. I think that does answer all the questions. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, so I'll definitely do this again, 100%. And if you did enjoy it, then do let me know. I probably will ask on Twitter and Instagram again for some Twitter questions, maybe in a future podcast, not so soon, but maybe later down the line. So make sure you do follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you don't already. I'm not the best at Twitter. I'm not as active as some of these guys like Northern Sports Cards. Is it the Soccer Silverback? He's really good on Twitter as well. And LDN Cards and obviously Brit Breaks are really good on Twitter as well. So I'm not the best on Twitter, but I'm trying to get there, definitely. Soccer Silverback. Yeah, he's a really good guy. I'd follow him as well. But there we go. That does finish it for this episode 4 of the Sports Cards UK podcast. As I said, if you did enjoy it, do drop a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. And on iTunes and Spotify, please do drop me a follow, and a rating would be really, really appreciated, especially on iTunes. I know a few of you have done that already, which really does help, but it does help the podcast in a long way to leave a kind of a good rating and a comment as well. It's much appreciated. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks very much.